Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about thought energy. Ah, isn't that a thinker? And luckily, I have Laura here who's going to help us think about this in a whole new way because this is something that we really need to think about, right? Our thoughts, energy, what is happening in there? So, luckily, thank you, Laura, for your time and your perspective. I am so excited to really think about this with you. So when you hear those words, thought energy, what does that make you think about?
Immediately, I want to say thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and feel the energy and the vibration and the connection. Thought energy to me is human potential at its best. It
Mm,
means we actually begin to authorize how we think about our thought structure and how that affects our feelings, behaviors, habits, patterns, and ultimately it forms our personality. So when we
mm.
learn to think about thought, we now can begin to create our highest and best self.
I love that because people don't really realize like what we think about develops our personality. You know what I mean? And I'm so glad you brought this up because I have yet to have an individual really say that. You know what I mean? So this really ties in the whole points of everything, because what you are really makes up of what goes on in your head and what goes on in your heart. So it's like, how do people start really thinking consciously about what's going on in their mind?
Yeah, I love this question because for me, it positions us into the power seat of choice. How am I feeling? We are so accustomed to moving on feeling, which is a beautiful part of the human condition, but it's also automatic. When
Mm-hmm.
we begin to ask ourselves, how am I thinking about the way I'm feeling? How am I thinking about the way I'm acting or interacting out in the world? This changes everything. It
Mm-hmm.
really does begin to develop a very unique set of skills and principles and a way of being in the world. We show up as this personality without really being accountable to the person we continue to become. And when we exercise thought energy and we ask of ourselves, negative, positive, neutral, which one am I? Now we begin to look at our thinking processes very differently. We just don't let the thought take us somewhere. We now have directive over where our thinking can take us.
Yes, yes, I love that because it goes back to what you're saying. It gives us that power back to ourselves. You know what I mean? And when we are consciously aware of what powers that we have within us, then we realize that we can really do so much more than what we actually could even think about. You know what I mean? So it really does changes the momentum of our lives every day as we're moving, grooving, and getting into things because it's about where am I? And then asking yourself, like, am I neutral? Am I negative? Am I positive? I mean, these are real things that people don't even consider because they're just naturally reacting. And like you said, like being part of our emotions, it can feel so natural. We just do whatever our feelings are, but we kind of have to also have that discipline that despite how we feel, we're still gonna do whatever that it is and have that accountability and have that honorability and really own up to whatever we promise that we will be or go for, despite how it may feel. So it's like, why do you think it's so difficult for people to have that honor when it comes to that self-discipline and that accountability?
We're just not taught. We're just not taught in those ways. It's nothing
Yeah.
against our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, our whole lineage, our ancestry. It isn't a movement of empowering individuals, therefore creating an empowered life. We are mechanisms and algorithms of what we've seen and then how we react. So we're not really taught how to respond with intellect or critical
Mhm.
thinking and not going too deep in the weeds and making it too quantum. But if we just look at our ability to think differently than we've always thought, that begins to activate and ignite that higher part of us that's dormant. And
Mhm.
again, most of us don't think about thoughts. Look at this as thoughts are electric currents. Feelings are magnetic. So, right, our feelings are always attracting experiences. into our life, a lot of what we don't want to attract, right? There's where the lessons are, etc. Thought for me allows us to become an observer, a
Mhm.
reflector of how am I thinking? And now what is the causation of that thought? So if I think, therefore I become. But again, the natural course of the human condition doesn't have a space in between. How am I thinking and what am I becoming? Who am I becoming? It's we think automatically and therefore we just show up. If we
Mhm.
create what I call this resting ridge, a place of solitude, of peace, of calm, meditate, journal, power walk, whatever it may be, and we give ourselves a moment to ask, how am I observing my thoughts? How am I thinking through something rather than how am I reacting? Now we start to exercise that level of intellect that, again, I feel has been very pushed under the behavior and the patterns and the personality. We really are not meant to be who we think we are. We're meant to be so much more. And thought energy, with the awareness of what energy am I placing into my thinking, now we get to really become a very powerful human being.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes sense. I mean, it really does make sense because if you really think about it, you know what I mean? Like the whole point, if you really do think about it and you recognize that when you have been negative and you see the world negatively and you respond negatively and then you react negatively, then you're just like, oh yeah, well, everybody's upset. Everyone's mean. Everyone's cruel. Everyone's evil. Everyone's out for themselves. Nobody cares about anybody. Well, you're going to see that in your world. You're going to see that in your environment. You're going to see that play out because that's where you're allowing it to manifest. That's where you're allowing it to come from, is that place of that negativity. But when you are positive and you're consciously thinking of more positive things like, oh, great things are happening to me. Oh, at least this wasn't as bad. At least I got to see this, or at least I got to experience this. At least the sun was out. Then you really do start to realize, oh, it's embodying what I'm really thinking about. And I don't think really people really think about it like that, you know, and it's not very conscious. And you're right, we aren't taught these things. And there's really no one to really blame. It's just now that we have the opportunity to learn, now we have the opportunity to grow. Now it's about now you know better, so do better. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Be
I
the
love that.
change. You know what I mean? Be the
Yeah.
change that you want to see in your environment. Be the change that you want to see for yourself because you know you never had somebody that was positive or uplifting or encouraging. Now you can be that person. Now you can step into that role of responsibility, knowing that you're responsible for your thoughts, you're responsible for what you project out, you're responsible what you receive in. And it's like this quote I seen. It's like it's not about being selective of your reality, but it's also about just that, about being selective. You know what I mean? We really do have to choose what we want to intake because it's like food. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. Like we choose what type of foods we want to eat and what foods we consume, and then we know certain bodies can't tolerate certain things. They can't tolerate spice, they can't tolerate dairy, they can't tolerate breads and glutens, you know what I mean? Or meats, you know what I mean? So it's like we really have to be conscientious. So if we know how to interpret our body, then why can't we interpret our mind in that same aspect? And I feel like there's some type of delay. So it's like what blocks thought energy?
Mm. The patterns, the
Mm.
false beliefs, the unworthiness, the hidden ability that is craving you to explore and discover that part of yourself. Thought energy is how we manifest the human experience. And when you look at it that way, you can start to ask yourself, what is in my way of becoming that intellectual person? What is in my way of healing trauma? What is in my way of showing up at my highest and best self? Let me take a moment and reflect and observe. What are the blocks? What are the said challenges? And then this is where a lot of excuses come in.
Yes.
Some are very validated, right?
Mhm.
Some of us have been through a lot. This is not to sideswipe that by any means. This is to say, yes, I see you
Yes.
and I honor what has happened. Now I want you to authorize something in its opposition. Now I want you to really show up and take the time to look for what is it that's blocking your greatness, your brilliance, your very best. I write about this in The Science of Empowerment. This book doesn't even talk not one thing about myself. It is so when you are reading it, the neuronal pathways are being activated so you remember you, not the
Mm,
part of you that you've become because my father abandoned me, my mother was an alcoholic, and all of what we've gone through. Again, we validate with great honor those experiences. But why spend another moment in that thought process that is keeping you blocked from a life of greatness and a life of beauty and a life of empowerment, whatever that may look like for you? It doesn't mean
yeah.
how I look at empowerment is your empowerment, but I guarantee you, if you begin to remove what's blocking a higher thought process, your life will absolutely advance on every level.
Oh, absolutely. Because then you realize the opportunities that were there. Then you realize, oh, now all I really have to do is just switch my thinking, just shift it, shift it, shift it. And we don't realize that our frame of mind is a 360 circle. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so I seen it like, so it's kind of like, we're like in this wall, like in this room, right? And but we don't realize that these walls are reclining. They can move. You know what I mean? So it's
They're
like once,
movable.
yeah, they're movable. So once you realize, oh, I can move this wall, you move the wall, and then you realize you have all this space to explore. And then you once you move the wall, and then you're like, okay, now I'm in this area, and you're just walking back and forth, really grasping the new concept that you made. Great. Now you're like, ah, now I want more. So now you move that other wall, and then you realize, okay, great. Now I'm in this new concept, and then I'm ready. But then they're like, you know what? I don't want to think that old way anymore. So they close the door on the old way of thinking, but then they open another door. You know what I mean? And they keep going, going, and not realizing, huh, now they're in like this circle, but then they find another door and they realize it goes back to where they originally decide to close off. Realizing like if you have it fully open, you realize like you have a room that's in a circle, and that's where your mind is. It's like it's open, it's broad, it's you need every little inch that you have, every stage of your life, everything can move you and you can utilize it in a sense where it's like it doesn't entrap you, because it's like if you don't move those walls, then you're in this space that keeps you stuck, and then you think, oh, I'm perfect in this space, but not realizing there's so much more out there. There's so many more things to learn, to grow and to evolve. And I also love the fact that you talked about excuses. Oh my goodness, let's really talk about that, because it's real. We Some of those excuses are valid. We're gonna be honest. You tripped, you fell, you broke your leg, and you can't walk. I get it. Now that's a valid excuse. You broke your leg, you can't really walk, but it doesn't stop you from being fully mobile. You can still move, you can still act, you can still speak, you can still voice in a way. Like if somebody does not have arms and does somebody does not have legs, they still have a heart that still makes them real. They still have a mind that still makes them functional. You know what I mean? Like I met somebody who their wife lost full like disability from her neck down, but she still had the sensations. She still had the right frame of mind, and he still valued her as a real woman. You know what I mean? So it just like shows that we can still have value despite any limitations that we may feel or see or hear. But it's like we have to really also surround ourselves by people that are also in that same momentum of trying to think better, do better, be better, because we can get stuck. You know what I mean? We can get pulled back by other people's lack of trying to evolve because of whatever pain that they're still holding on to. So I love the fact that you talked about, you know what I mean, those blocks that truly hinder you. Oh, we have to let go of those limiting beliefs. And oh, I love also how you talked about we learn from things. It's an algorithm on mind how they work. You know what I mean? We take certain scenarios and then we're like, okay, well, this means this if this happens. Okay, we get it. We get the math. So then we automatically presume that this is gonna happen if this happens again. So we I get that. You know what I mean? So when you said that, I was
Yes.
like, oh, it makes sense. This is the reason why somebody has a discrimination against somebody or some place or some a whole region or some religion or some race, because they had a bad experience with that one individual individual, and now everything else that even reminds them of that individual is now tainted. And that's the reason why people can't even give anybody the benefit of the doubt, because now they're
Right.
tainted by that one person that ruined the whole entire pot for everybody else. So how do we really move forward in a way that truly gives us this empowerment?
Yeah, God, I have so much like I want to say and in because and just to remind everyone, think I have a quote in the Science of Empowerment and it's in a little bubble. We call them champagne bubbles, and it says, excuses are unnecessary. They
Hmm.
really are. They do nothing to move us forward, to advance us forward. So it's just really important to understand that when something happens to us, it is in place to activate a higher level of our existence. We are here to evolve. So we're in physicality in order for consciousness, spirit to evolve. However, you look at the world, God connection, universal connection, it really is up to you to not stay stagnant in any position. We
Hmm.
are energy beings. We are here to thrive and to move always, always. So if you could ask me the question again, because I wanted to get that out. So anyone listening, when they understand, I have this is the reason why. No, the reason why is in place for you to activate the next level of understanding that why, not to keep you locked into the why. Two different things,
Yes.
two different thought processes. One keeps you stuck, one acts absolutely expands you away from the stuckness into the next level of your greatness. So I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you.
No problem. I love it. It really does hold much power. So the question was, how do we really step into this empowerment when it comes
Yes.
to our thoughts?
Yes.
But
So
I think you kind of already touched into that already, but go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, and something that's very unique within the science of empowerment is the J3 equals E formula. And this is what I speak all over the world on. I teach my clients and all of that. It is 5 words that I'm going to give the listeners: awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, energy. When you apply those 5 words to any any challenge, what am I aware of in the moment? What am I willing to do? What is my accountability? This takes that blame out. Critical thinking, I am no longer a reactor, I am a responder. We think with
Hmm.
critical thought, clear, rational thought. We suspend the emotionality for a moment. Now this puts us into the fifth principle, energy, negative, positive, neutral. Which one am I? I just began to neutralize that stagnation. I'm now moving away from negativity into the power seat of neutrality. Now we use thought energy to go into a positive state of being. This is how we create an empowered life.
I love it. I love it because I feel like people forget about critical thinking. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They forget about just taking that moment and not responding and just soak whatever that's what's happening in front of you and soak it in to really take that moment of reflecting. That power of pause. People
Yeah.
do not realize there is true power in just pausing. The world expects you to react. The world expects impulsiveness. The world expects you to be jumpy and living on the surface of life of just reaction. You know what I mean? And just acting on it now, but not realizing the true peace that you have is with pausing, contemplating, critically thinking, critically really analyzing in your mind what is really happening and what is going on. Yeah, there's going to be certain moments that you're going to have to impulsively react like, okay, someone's choking. Okay, you don't have to think about it, just act on it and save the person's life. But you have
Right.
to have that conscious of understanding of what you will not and will what you will and will not tolerate. And I think that's that energy and responding and knowing not to have that blame game, because man, it's so easy to step in that blame game, but it's that accountability that makes you a leader, that accountability that makes you seen and heard and valued in a way that nobody likes to step into because they think, oh, well, that makes me vulnerable. And nobody likes vulnerability. You know what I mean? They have vulnerability, unfortunately, has a bad rep, but it's not bad. It's empowering, true empowering. Like to be vulnerable with somebody, that's empowering. That really shows who you are because that means now nobody can take whatever that you say in a way to really manipulate it to turn it back to you in a negative way because you already empowered it. You already owned up to it. You already acknowledged it. Who cares if I was homeless? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Who cares if that happened to me? You know what I mean? Who
yeah,
cares? How does that shouldn't define you as a person. That just
love
makes
that.
you all that you are and you are great for all that you are. Oh my goodness,
Love that.
Laura, it's a problem. We are getting deep, but time is catching up to us.
I
So,
know.
what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to leave you with the most powerful quote from the science of empowerment. Fear has no place within a civilized mind. And I want you to remember that. Fear, it's an energy. It has no place within a civilized mind. That means the mind that's accountable, the mind that authorizes its own empowerment, the mind that connects to its greatness while you are here in physical form. We don't mean actual real fear. We use that word fear as a block, as a point of stagnation. It has no place in your evolution. You are a gift to this world. You are brilliant. You are amazing. You are a superstar. Whatever that may be for you, own it, authorize it, and empower the world with your presence.
Ooh, I am loving this, Laura. Yes. Fear really has no place in our world, in our mind, in our concept, because it hinders you. Because you know what I mean? It really does hinder you if you see it in that way, because it can paralyze you.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, it can paralyze you if you allow yourself to live in that space of fear. So it's just like taking that ownership, reminding yourself of the amazing human being that you are is so empowering because we are amazing and we barely touched the surface of understanding all that we can do. You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that we have to remember is just that we're great. Don't allow comparison to allow you to step into fear. Don't allow the unknown of what could you be to step into fear and to not allow you to even discover all that you can be. You know what I mean? Because just that alone can really hinder you. So, oh my goodness, there's a list and it's a scroll and it can go on for days on end. Let's be honest, you know. So,
Yeah. And if I may just also add, and this is one of the favorites of my readership around the world, do not glance at the power, become the power. And that's what
mm.
you just said, and I think really sums up this beautiful show in that way. Do not glance at it, become it. It's yours.
Oh, I love it. I just have to write that down because that's so empowering. It is because we really do have to not even glance at it, just step it into it, own it, acknowledge it. It's like if you see someone choking, you're not gonna just walk on by. You're gonna step into that authority position. You're gonna save that person's life. You're gonna help them in any way that you can. You know what I mean? I know I've been in that situation and I didn't see anybody there, so I was just like, okay, let me just do what I know. And I saved that old lady's life. And who knows what would have happened to her if I would have just never stepped into that courage of just, okay, I can do this, you know? And we have to really realize that we can do anything, but we can also stop ourselves from doing everything as well.
Oh,
You
I
know what
love
I
it.
mean? Like we don't realize like we can be our best friend and our worst enemy all in one. And it's like we have to really have that moment of clarity, reflection, and understanding to really step into the good side of what we can be. So thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Laura, for this
Yep.
opportunity, for this time to share your perspective and your just the whole entire everything that you're embodying and sharing with the world. And you're not even keeping it to yourself. You wrote a book, you have your website, you have so much great content trying to share with the world. And this is the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, you need to go check her out. I have access to her website, access to all the great content that she has to offer the world, just so that you can continue on thinking. Laura is not selfish. No, no, no. She's helping you embody all that you are and all that you can be. So, a great way for you to reach out to her if you really want that extra oomph so that you can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.